Today we're excited to virtually, we're good? Okay, thanks, Brian.
Your turn.
Okay, got it. I actually got off the Wi-Fi just in case.
Okay, we're gonna do Reyn now.
And then Craig, you're gonna number them, yeah?
You want me to number them?
Thanks.
Just read from the top?
Yeah.
Oh, aloha everyone. Welcome to our Meet the Maker series. Today we're excited to virtually transport you to Mukawa on the island of Oahu for our Hawaii storytelling event.
E ho mai ka ike mai luna mai e o na mea huna no e o na mele e ho mai e ho mai e ho mai e ho mai ka ike mai luna mai e o na mea huna no e o na mele e ho mai e ho mai e ho mai e ho mai ka ike mai luna mai e o na mea huna no e o na mele e ho mai e ho mai e ho mai e.
Aloha everyone, mahalo for joining us today. Welcome to our 7th Meet the Makers virtual event in partnership with Hawaiian Airlines Bank of Hawaii World Elite MasterCard. We hope you enjoyed playing some Hawaii place-based trivia during our pre-show, and we're about to learn so much more about some of Hawaii's most fascinating stories during today's experience with local ocean lifestyle company Aloha Modern. I'm your host, Melly James, co-founder of Mana Up, a local accelerator program to help Hawaii businesses grow and scale to global markets. We're based here on Oahu. We also have a shop, House of Mana Up, where you can find the products made by these entrepreneurs who participated in our program. If you're a Hawaiian Airlines Bank of Hawaii World Elite MasterCard holder, we have an exclusive perk for you when you shop with us at House of Mana Up. Earn 2 miles for every $1 you spend on houseofmanaup.com. I'm excited for today's experience because we're going to hear some really cool stories rooted in Hawaii culture. So let's get right into it and meet today's maker, co-founder of Aloha Modern, Reyn Mukawa. Aloha, Reyn. Thanks for joining us.
Mahalo for having me.
Of course. All right. So, you know, I want to learn a little bit more about Aloha Modern and how you guys got started.
Yeah, so Mālia and I both kind of met at our day jobs. I'm an architect full-time, and Mālia owns a consulting company as well as an outreach company, a Hawaiian strategy studio. And working on projects, we found that we were telling stories of Hawaii through development, but we wanted to show it through another lens. So over Pauhana Drinks, you know, in Malia's backyard is where we kind of birthed this company. Yeah.
So it's always, I feel like the best ideas come over Pauhana Drinks, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, just the ideas are flowing.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. The more you drink, the more ideas.
All right, we'll have to keep that in mind for after the show. So was it based on like frustration where you felt there was a kind of a disconnect with, when we've had Hawaii patterns on many types of things, clothing,
Absolutely.
etc. But where did some of this kind of storytelling come from?
I think, well, we're in a time where I think a lot of people are hungry for stories again. It's a time period where I think a lot of culture was either lost or made its way through kind of the grassroots movement again to come back and revitalize Hawaiian culture. And I think there's a thirst for aloha, there's thirst for Hawaiian culture, there's thirst for tradition. So we were telling these stories through our development, but it was nice for us to find a new outlet, for us to kind of bring it to kind of the consumer market. So it was beyond just kind of our clients. It was just, you know, now we can reach the masses with it.
So they didn't have to be constructing a hotel
No,
to get
yeah,
access to
they
your...
didn't have to be building a new building for us to be involved. Yeah.
I love that. It's like one of our companies from Mana Up cohort 1 or 2 was saying they started the company for the aunties.
Yeah. There you go. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So okay. So there was kind of this disconnect, and I feel like you're right. So many people are looking for that authentic and that authentic narrative, and they kind of want to learn more and deepen that experience of Hawaii.
Absolutely. And you know, when we even shop for ourselves, it was hard for us to find towels or products about you know, stories that we wanted to tell. So we decided to kind of fill that void ourselves.
That's awesome. And then of course, I'm sure we'll be diving into many of these products, but I just love that there's so many opportunities, whether you are getting wet at the beach, to pareos and all these other good things. So we're gonna dive into them more. I won't jump ahead too much. But for all of you watching with us live during tonight's event, you'll have a chance to enter to win an exclusive and limited edition product, Aloha Modern's Pualani sport towel made in collaboration with our partner Hawaiian Airlines to celebrate their 92nd anniversary. To enter, click the link we post in the comment section below or scan the QR code here, and we will announce the winner at the end of the show. So be sure to stay tuned. So I'm really serious. You need to be watching the show because we're going to be picking it from someone watching the show. And then of course we'll be announcing it at the end. So yeah, Reyn, would you mind showing
Absolutely.
the cool Pualani?
Yeah, so it was an honor for us to be approached to be, helping Hawaiian Airlines celebrate their 92nd anniversary. So with this towel, we did we kind of concept for this was about Pualani, about hibiscus and the alo or the actual native hibiscus itself, the vibrancy of the colors, but also the olelo no eau about
so pretty.
Yeah. So it was all about bringing flowers and flowing nature and into Hawaiian Airlines collab design.
That's awesome. And I know we'll be hearing more about that in the near future. And I just want to say I love these little towels. I use these for working out,
Great.
on my Peloton, when I do use my Peloton.
This is the best thing for the car too.
Oh.
I love it for my car. In the windshield or just around the car. It's a quick, easy towel to keep close by.
All right, I like it. Okay, Reyn. So I'm looking forward to learning more about how you weave the stories of Hawaii into your lifestyle products, of course. Is that what we're diving into next?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of our design starts with kind of our early moʻolelo process. And a lot of it starts with, what stories do we want to tell? What stories connect to us? And from there, we explore all the connecting pieces and we dive into each little component, trying to figure out what parts of the story we really want to emphasize.
All right, well, let's hear more about that design process now.
We come to the ocean a lot to get inspiration for our designs, for our products. Aloha Modern is an ocean lifestyle company, and we are of the ocean. We both are, my dad was a fisherman from Ka'u, and Reyn is an ocean activist and spent many years growing up in the ocean as well, surfing, and we live on an island. We're island people, and the ocean is our super highway to the world. So as such, we come to the ocean for inspiration, for renewal, for energy, but mostly in our company for inspiration. We think about the stories of the mountains, all the way down to the kula, through the different lands, and out to the ocean and the reefs even. And this is really where we get to connect with nature and deepen our relationship with the ocean. We're still learning about this beautiful place called Hawaii. That's our Onehanau and Arbor Sands. And as we continue to deepen our relationships and tell stories of this land, we become more pa'a, more pili to the land.
Typically when we start our design process, we like to look back at, what multiple stories we can pull from one moʻolelo, the multiple angles, also kind of what are the different components of the story. We talk about place names, the physical descriptions of these places. We talk about all the flora and fauna that live in the area native to kind of that specific ahupua'a, or it could be taking place from wherever the story of the person is from. So we typically start with kind of one subject topic or one story, and from that story we can storyboard multiple ideas. And when we start this process, we look at, do we tackle this from a more geometric perspective, or do we tackle this more on a kind of realistic, sketchy kind of design, and then we take it from there. So there's multiple ways that we go about in interpreting designs itself. We try to layer in as much information as we can, and every little line and color has a very specific purpose, so that anything that is done into a pattern is done with pure intention, and that's really what I think sets the patterns apart from kind of storyboarding, is that this is a living story and multiple interpretations can come from it.
That was awesome. I mean, I love the storyboarding on the board, and just how you guys come at I mean, because sometimes it's easier to create it in more the shapes as opposed to the actual, like, oh, this is what the place is about, so I'm going to draw this thing.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and sometimes it goes back and forth. You know, like do we go back to the story and feel like what did we miss, and then we try to go back and add components or take out things that we don't think work anymore. But there's a lot of back and forth on that. Yeah.
So how do you layer onto each other? I mean, because you come from two very different backgrounds.
Very different backgrounds, but at the same time, I think we still speak the same language in terms of what we visually want, in terms of kind of the outcome of our designs. So it's really good that we feed off of each other, especially when it comes from like a more design perspective. And for Mālia, it definitely comes from more of like a storytelling and deeper kind of connectivity perspective. Yeah.
So you are an architect.
Yes.
Okay. So that's your traditional background. And then Mālia has her PhD in Hawaiian.
Political science and Hawaiian studies.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
There's just that beautiful melding of lots of ways to tell the story.
Yeah. Design and knowledge, kind of where it all kind of ties together.
So you guys were in Mana Up cohort 5.
Yes.
Oh, the infamous cohort. The one that we had to get really creative with during
Really
the pandemic.
creative, yes.
But we still managed a few pauhanas.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that helped us in ways because we had to kind of tackle something new that you guys didn't kind of tackle yet either. So it was a nice challenge for us.
Yeah. Well, can you share more about your experience?
Yeah,
with Mana Up?
absolutely. Mana Up was great, especially just the sense of the cohorts themselves really are true huis. You know, like you really get to know your group and they become kind of your core, and you rely on each other for like, you know, their business perspective, especially because they see your business from a different lens as well. So like taking a lot of each other's, I guess, comments and each other's suggestions really helped us through that process.
Yeah, and a lot of those like strengths and
Absolutely.
a lot of collabs too.
A lot of
coming out.
collabs.
More to
yeah,
come.
more to come. Absolutely.
All right, so now that we've kind of gotten more into like that design process, I'm excited to learn more about diving deep into, you know, one of the narratives around a particular design.
Sure. Yeah. So definitely, you know, one of our beginning stories that we tied into was what was the storyline behind each moʻolelo that we wanted to tell, is where we kind of started the process.
All right. And yeah, so now we're gonna dive into a particular design here, the Mahina.
Mahina, yeah. So Mahina was actually one of the first designs that we started with. There's kind of two specific ones. Puko'a, we really wanted to pay homage to kind of the first life given in the Kumulipo. So one of our favorite lines from there, derived from that, is the Puko'a pattern, which describes life from the ocean and creating that little hanau reef in the life cycle of the small kind of organisms. But also it was Mahina. Mahina is definitely what grounds us on a daily basis. So the traditional pomahina, or the calendar of the nights, run in 3 different cycles called anahulu. Within the anahulu, there's the growing period, there's the decreasing period, and the full periods. And within these, each of the days is designated kind of a different plants or a different types of fish, or different times to fish, where to fish. A lot depends on the day or the night, which was specifically the mahina of the day.
So we've got this pouch here, which is this is the Mahina print.
This is the Mahina print.
So Mahina means moon.
Moon, yes.
And it's the moon phases.
Moon phase. So
Okay.
yeah. So po Mahina, or night pole, or what we call also the helu pole, which is counting of the nights. So traditionally within the 30 days, each of them have different names and associated with them, and associated with different meanings. But also to a very specific moʻolelo, and which is why the pattern itself has this custom kapa pattern that we showed inside. It's a story about Hina, the goddess, the moon goddess, who made her home out in Rainbow Falls, but she was trying to hide from her husband. So she found solace in the sun, but the sun was too hot and her kapa would dry and it would burn. So she retreated to the moon, and the moon is where she found cool solace, enough time for her kapa to dry. Which is why a lot of people say, you know, if you look at certain times of the night on a full moon during the poi poi periods, is when you can see the kapa prints within the moon that Hina's doing.
Oh, and you can that's kind of what you're.
Yeah, and that's
referring
the
to here.
intent behind the pattern for
I
this one.
see.
Yeah.
That's really neat. When we had our house blessed, the person that was helping us was very specific about what moon it could be when we had the blessing.
Absolutely. And when you look at indigenous cultures around the world, the moon really ties it all together. It was the only noticeable thing that you can count of the day. The sun looks the same every day, but as the moon changes is when you can notice, this is a pattern. Yeah.
Wow. So okay, so if someone gets the Mahina print, is there a story that they can look up, or is there a card?
So each of the kind of pieces either come with a moʻolelo piece attached to it, so it'll have like the storyline as well as the pattern front and back on it on the label. But also in some of the other pieces, like our pareo pieces and some of our bags have little QR codes, and it takes you to the moʻolelo on our website that has a little bit more expand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I wish everybody could see what we have on the table here, because it literally is all the moon phases, and then each name of that particular moon phase written as this beautiful, I would say perfect, collab of design plus storytelling.
Absolutely.
Just very much you guys. All right, so the next design is Hilo, and love to hear more about that.
So one of the really cool things about being a storyteller is that you get to see your stories come to life in different forms and different elements. And our special promo towel for tonight, in collaboration with Mana Up and Hawaiian Airlines, is our Hilo towel. And our Hilo towel is very special to me because I was born in Hilo, and it reminds me of the olelo no ea Hilo Paakai Aloha, which was the theme of my wedding. And Hilo means to braid or to tie together. So Hilo, you can see the pattern here is literally braided in. But then and also a recognition of the Hilo moon as well. And the moon phases for us as Kanaka, they define all of our activities throughout the day. Whether we're gonna plant or harvest, whether we're going to fish. So the moons are very important to us. So our Hilo towel, our pattern, is sharing both those stories. The stories of the moon, as well as the stories of the braiding and weaving patterns that we see. And this is our special promo towel for tonight.
I love that. I mean, I'm so curious how you layered, just kind of layered the stories of Hilo inside of the pattern. So
Yeah.
that's this one here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Hilo.
And you got there?
Yeah, Hilo. This is our Hilo pattern. And like Mālia was, mentioning, it's so special to her because there's so many meanings tied into this as well. But when we tackled this pattern specifically, we wanted to layer a bunch of information as much as we could, because Hilo is really a whole bunch of different definitions. So as Mālia was saying, it means to twist and to braid, but it's also the first cycle of the moon. So we have that in here as well. Hilo also has a famous Reyn, Ka'ua kanilehua, which is also demonstrated here as well. But if you rotate the pattern upside down, it's actually representative of pe'a, or Hawaiian sails in the canoe, which also kind of pays homage to a famous navigator who also named by Hilo. But Hilo to twist and braid is really kind of the component that ties all of this together. And it really is, telling from a specific moʻolelo about Kamehameha. So Kamehameha took his men to the Wailuku River up in Hilo to visit a friend. He left his canoe out in the bay and asked his men to watch the canoe while he was away. So Kamehameha had gone up the stream, and the time had passed, and they were concerned about his safety. So during that time frame, one of the men thought it would be wise to anchor the canoe itself. So he took the la'i, or the tea leaf itself, started to twist, and then braided it together to create a long cordage to tie the canoe together. And from there, the men went upstream to find Kamehameha, found him safe. And they asked him, what happened to my canoe? So his canoe was tied down by the bay, and the men told him, we twisted the braids of a la'i, or the tea leaf, and we tied it to the canoe for safekeeping. Mm-hmm. And that's where he said, that's excellent, this is great. This area from now on will be called Hilo. So
Wow.
it kind of ties it all together.
Okay. Okay.
A mouthful.
I mean, I'm just impressed how you're able to literally layer what
Those
you just said,
stories.
which are all totally, I mean, they're related, but they're not related.
Yeah, it's how to layer in all those meanings for one word as much as we can into one kind of descriptive visual story. Yeah.
And then how did you pick the colors? I mean, I know that's what you just said, it was so meaningful, and I'm talking about colors
Yeah,
now,
so-
but I mean, that is important.
Absolutely.
element.
So colors we tend to change. We try to do, you know, different colors. So this one is the first color we did. Is kind of that misty rain that runs through Hilo. So it is that Kaʻaihue color that we decided to go with the first. And then the second round we did kind of this darker tone for Hilo, which is like it has this nice mauve color when there's a sunset. And right over the horizon at Mauna Kea, you can see it's like this nice maroon color. So we decided to go with that color second.
Yeah, I'm always so impressed with your colors. I mean, even these, it's just, they're very different. They're very rich as well. All right, so just a reminder for everyone, we are still accepting entries for our giveaway of an exclusive limited edition Aloha Modern by Hawaiian Airlines sport towel. Be sure to enter before it's too late. Click on the link in the comment section and we'll announce the lucky winner at the end of today's event. All right, so Reyn, we got to see what your design process looks like, which was really, really incredible. What's up next?
Up next is kind of what we do after our design process. After Mālia and I kind of discuss the patterns, we'll take a second to pick the colors, and then we order them in multiple patterns and colorways, and then we get the samples and take it from there.
All right.
Yeah. Part of Aloha Modern's process is also getting samples to make sure that the material and design and color is everything that we expect it to be. So we get the samples in from our distributors and our manufacturers, and we make sure that everything is to the design and specification of the samples we sent them as prototypes, just to make sure that we get the design across. A lot of times too, we want to make sure that, you know, a lot of times the screen color is not the same, even though you pick the right Pantones and you work in the color world digital realm, that you want to make sure your physical colors are always coming through of what you anticipated them to be. So getting the physical samples in, we always like to make sure that the colors coming in are exactly what we intended them to be. So we always double check, and before we make the full production of the final products, this is the last final step.
Our process is family and fun. So you'll see, like, throughout all of our design elements, conceptual design inspiration, we always have keiki around and our family, and then we also like to have fun. So when Reyn and I can't decide on which towel to print next or which colorway, we often play off for it. So this is our ping pong table, and it makes a lot of the big decisions in Aloha Modern. Okay, and you're gonna lose. You ready? So you can see I always win. So all of our towels are suede microfiber, so anti-sand and fast drying. So what's really awesome is that I have 8 keiki. So if I need 8 towels, I just grab 8 towels like this and throw it in my bag. I don't need a huge bag for my towels. They're super compact. And then I hang them out to dry, and they're dry in a matter of minutes, and they don't drag sand and all the grass and stuff into my car, which is amazing from a mom's perspective. Each of the packages has a story of the design. So this is the Puko'a towel. And Puko'a is the coral reef. It's the first thing born in the Hawaiian world. And it tells you the story, so that as you gift these to people, not only are they going to get the beautiful towel in the brilliant colors and designs that we have, but they'll also get the moʻolelo as well. And that really is how the moʻolelo was born. And we feel like it brings mana to the work that we do, because the stories live on when they're gifted to each other, when you use them. Every time your keiki are wrapped in them, they're wrapped in the puko'a, and that's the magic for us.
Well, I love just the thoroughness of that full process. And I have to say, I've had some of your towels for quite a few years now. I definitely don't treat them nicely. Full, you know, washing machine, all the fullness, the beach.
Absolutely.
And I just, the stitching and everything is just, it always still looks new, and even the richness of the colors. Can you share more about those kind of final processes with us?
Yeah, absolutely. And that took some time, like with every company, to kind of find, you know, the right blend of the material and the right, I guess, the right coloring and the right processes. So we got lucky. That you know, with some of our partners and our manufacturers, that we were able to get things down to the T. So I think, you know, we have a pretty well-oiled ship now, but it was definitely a learning curve. You know, yeah.
They know not to mess with you now. Yeah. Well, and just the subtleties of the different colors. I think you're right. It's so important. All right, so speaking of just beautiful, subtle colors, we've got our Hala print next. So can you share more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Hala, as everybody knows, is kind of what we come to know its modern use for. A lot of times is landscaping, but a lot of times the fruit itself too is used in lei. The lauhala, or the leaves themselves, is used for weaving or for hana no eo, like bracelets and other rings, lauhala jewelry. But the story behind this is pretty well known, I'd say, amongst some of the people who live within Honolulu itself. I know a lot of people know the story of Punaho, or of what we know as Kapunaho. So the story, or the moʻolelo of the story, goes that there's a elderly couple that lives in Kamoʻiliʻili, and there's a terrible drought that comes over the area, and that the streams aren't running as frequently as they do. So the husband and wife go to sleep that night and they pray and ask for an answer. How do we get water? And in their dream, they found that the gods were telling them to find the hala tree up on the hill, dig that tree, dig under the tree, under the roots, and you'll hit a spring. And that's where they found fresh water, and that spring still lives today on Punahou campus. Right by the chapel.
Yes.
Yeah, I know you know it well.
I do know as an alum, and it's
You
our
know it
logo.
well. Yeah, and it is a logo. But yeah, it's definitely, paying those homages to these stories that a lot of people might know, might not know why the hala is, the logo within Punahou, but, it all ties down to these stories that were once, really prominent for the area.
Wow, that's and you were mentioning moʻiliʻili. That's, some people know that as like more the university area.
Absolutely, but moʻiliʻili definitely, when you look at kind of how the old distribution of lands used to be in the Ahupua area, the different ilis in that area really jumbled and overlapped, and it's actually a huge part of Kapakea, or what we know as Kamoʻiliʻili. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, this one is absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
All right. So can you let's go to the Paakai design is up next.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know we heard earlier from Mālia about her ties to Hilo and her kind of special design piece. So for my special kind of design piece was a Paakai design, which is also the pareo, or scarf, that you're also wearing. So Paakai is definitely paying homage to my ohana. So my family comes from Hanapepe on Kauai. And a lot of people know of Salt Pond, which is kind of a famous beach that's down in Hanapepe. So Salt Pond is made up of an area of red clay. 26 families, legacy families, have been doing it for over 150 years, making Hawaiian salt. And the process is super interesting. So I was, lucky enough to my Uncle Val and Uncle Keith for, taking me down there and teaching me how to create the beds and pour salts and kind of cultivate kind of a lost art. So the process itself kind of starts with a punawai, or a spring. So each area within that is designated to a different family. And
so they're natural springs?
Natural springs.
Okay.
So it's kind of this huge red clay area that's right next to the beach. It's definitely special. It gets a lot of prominent south wind that kind of gets blocked from the ocean. But it's in the perfect kind of spot for drying. So these families create their own little wells, or punawai, and then they create another bed next to it called waiku. So waiku means like to stand, or standing water, and this is where you allow kind of a shallow pool, the water to heat up, get it to get a little bit less, I guess, foamy, when it comes right out of the ocean. So it's in like a settle bed. You eventually move that water over to pune, or the actual sea pans, or seabed themselves, salt pans, I'm sorry. And this is where it goes through a drying process, and you keep layering more water, slushing around as the salt solidifies. And then within that, there's created multiple layers. So that's kind of where the pattern brings us to. So the layers within the salt, there's multiple colors. It comes from this kind of dark orangey, which is the bottom layer. And
that's the clay?
The clay,
okay.
Or the clay itself, yeah.
Okay.
But within the layers of salt, so when the salt beds are typically ready, usually at the end of the rainy season, that's when typically you cultivate. So the top layer of the salt is usually the whitest, the purest, and that's usually used for table salt. There's a second layer that's kind of pink in color and tone. That's used a lot for cooking, or marinating, or preserving. And then the bottom layer, which is the most red, alai salt, is where we usually typically use them for ceremonies, or fishermen or hunters use it for kind of preservation on game.
Oh, because we're seeing a lot of alai salt or
Yeah.
alai salt in more gifting, and it's
Absolutely.
So is that still a quality salt?
Absolutely. So especially when I think that's what makes the Hana Pepe Paakai so special is that they're not actually sold. These families cultivate the salt and they gift it. So auntie down the street has mangoes. So she goes down. She knows one of the families. They'll trade 5-gallon buckets of mango or lychee, and they'll get a little tub of Paakai.
Oh, that's so okay. So all of those more Hawaiian salt ponds, they don't sell the salt.
No,
Okay.
not in the traditional way.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So a lot of the traditional.
Should we taste them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I brought some from Kaʻaihue. We harvested this past July.
Okay.
So this is kind of a small mixture of the kind of
Little
pink
pinch.
layer. Yeah, absolutely.
I shouldn't take too big of a pinch. I'll be able to talk.
So what actually makes Hana Pepe Paakai so unique is it's a little sweet. It's not directly salty.
Yeah.
So what that is it's actually a lot of brine shrimp. What they do is they live in the wells and they eat the algae, so it keeps the water fresh. The water's always crystal clear, so it's never overgrown with algae. And in that process, they get mixed up in the salt, but it actually adds such a nice flavor to it. So a lot of people don't realize that the Hana Pepe salt gets that natural flavor from those tiny brine shrimp.
That's really special.
Yeah, it
All
is.
right.
Yeah.
All right. So can you share with me more about the different products? I know we've been touching on. We've got these. Are these more pareos, or are they scarves, or kind of all the above?
Kind of all of the above. What we did was we did kind of a traditional pareo width, but we took a scarf length and we tied that together. So it has the length of a scarf, but the width of a pareo. So you kind of get both of, in one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we've got the bigger towels that
Yes.
are like the full-on
Full-on
situation.
size towels. So these are the like yoga size towels, which are 30 inches by 72, as well as
And then also the sport towel, or the car towel, as we say.
Yes.
And then we've got the waterproof bags, right?
Yeah, so we have our kind of waterproof line, splash-proof neoprene bags as well. So those are, keeping for your towel dry. You don't want to get your bag wet, or your bikini, if you just come out of the water, or your rash guard. Throw it in that little bag, and it'll keep it wet inside there when you get home, and it won't get everything else wet.
Oh, I love it. It's kind of that wetsuit material.
Yeah. So it's a 3mm neoprene.
Got it. And then we've got the new face masks. Those are new.
Yes, we have new face masks. It has cotton on the inside, double lined, and it also has a little pocket for an additional filter. But the outside of the mask itself is polyester, so easy to clean.
Awesome. And then I love these. They're kind of like waffle towels. They're thicker.
Yeah, so we
And bigger?
Yeah, they're definitely bigger. So we did 5-foot by 5-foot square beach blankets. So they're a little bit more durable. They're more heavy. The waffle texture makes it for a lot more traction, because a lot of the suede towels, we feel it's a very smooth, slick feel. But when you're running around and you have the keiki running around the mat, we wanted a little bit more kind of texture to it.
And if you put your blanket down on a beach where it ends up having like pokies or something,
there
it
you go,
probably
yeah.
won't go through.
Exactly, yes.
All right. Well, mahalo, Reyn, for today's experience.